Financial wellness. Reach out to them for advice at 855-DON-GINO. And now back to your hosts, Don Getling and Gino Franti.
Welcome to the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show on this fine Saturday. And today we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to do things a little bit differently because Don is out of town. So while the cat's away, the mice will play. And I have another fine mouse with me today, one of our favorite guests, Mr. Rob Schwartz with Premier College Guidance, sitting in for Don, and we're going to just have a blast today, man.
I am truly excited to be here. One, I don't have to have a competition for gold stars. There's only one person earning gold stars today, and that is the great Gino Franti. Two, when Gino asked me to step in on Don's behalf while he's traveling to Mexico.
Yep.
It's this idea of, well, we're not just talking college, which is normally what I do. We're going to be talking world affairs, finance, and I'm going to be able to show off a little bit of that bachelor's degree and that master's degree, and hopefully you guys will think, hey, college education actually pays off occasionally.
Well, hopefully it pays off for you, so I'd like for you guys to join us. The best way to join us is at donandgino.com. Enter the vault at donandgino.com and watch us streaming live straight to you from our Vault Media studios here at Skyline Home Loans. And we'd love for you to check us out also on a daily basis at the National Real Estate Cafe. The best way to do that is to text 5885, text NREC to 58885. And that's been great. I've been getting the daily updates now on the National Real Estate Cafe, and we do that to ourselves to make sure everything's functioning. And the only person I really know doing that right now, other than us, is that I receive at least, is Darren Hardy, the publisher of Success Magazine. And I received the Darren Daily. So if you haven't checked that out, I recommend you look up Darren Daily and subscribe to that feed.
I'd also say for those of you out there in the housing market and you're looking to see what's been going on, it changes pretty regularly and sometimes pretty drastically. And knowing what's going on a day-to-day basis can sometimes be very, very helpful, sometimes a little overwhelming. But for those who are really in the know, want to know what's going on, Don and Gino provide an outstanding service, and I do strongly recommend it.
So thank you for joining us at 11 a.m. at 9 a.m. this fine Saturday, and I'd love for you to check us out also at the Vault magazine. We've got a magazine that we put together with the very best, and I know you're in there, Rob. So thank you for joining us. The best way to get that is at aprgi.com. aprgi.com to subscribe to the Vault magazine. No advertisements in the Vault magazine, just a lot of great information. I know I get information from the articles. I think I got a lot of great tuning information for my insurance out of the last magazine.
Carlos does a great job. Carlos Villalobos, Insurance, of course, who's been around here, forever. I know that occasionally my articles find their way in, and for those of you who are thinking about college readiness, college financial aid, there are some terrific pieces we've provided over the past couple of months that hopefully will help you, your family, your friends, etc.
Beautiful. Well, let's jump in a little bit on what's going on outside of our country, because there's a lot of things. And, one of the things I've been discussing a lot with my friends that are in the financial world is how interconnected the world has become, how globally interconnected finances have become. And, in the past, I think you had this idea of USA versus Russia, right? So let's think of the Cold War, and you had 2 decades or maybe 3 decades of that. And when you looked at that from a financial perspective, the worse off they were, the better off we were. And it doesn't work that way anymore. I mean, like right now, our largest rival, for argument's sake, would be China. And right now, let me tell you, if China goes down, we got problems.
You couldn't be more right, Gino. And the idea of an interconnected world goes so much further than just finance. It goes to military situations. You look at the U.S. has intervened in how many countries overseas, and you start to say, well, how many other countries are involved in those decisions? I watched Jon Stewart a couple nights ago with President Obama, and there was a coalition of 60 countries involved in the ISIS/ISIL fighting that's going on in a number of countries all over the world now. So we're interconnected not just in a fiscal sense, but in a geopolitical sense and in a military sense as well.
No, that's a good point, Rob. I really don't spend too much time thinking of that part of the world, but of course, that also affects everything that's going on here. Every time we're thinking about terrorism, I know it kind of, we believe that we go kind of absent, right? I mean, 9/11 is kind of a long time ago. Of course, we never forget, but it's kind of a long time ago. And we forget that we actually live terrorist attacks throughout the world every day.
We also have the issue of domestic violence, which we're seeing more and more, where most recently in Chattanooga, losing 5 servicemen, to someone who we're still trying to figure out, is there a tie to a trip he made overseas to the Middle East? Was he spurred on by a jihadist attack, or was it something he planned on his own? But nevertheless, we're still seeing the effects of terrorism both overseas and now at home.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that, and I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist. I really am not. But, you know, the other thing is electronic terrorism, right? We're looking at hackers, you know, going forward. And, you know, you remember all these movies we saw with EMP, right? And you're like, oh, well, that looks really cool. Hey, that might be a reality 20, 30 years from now.
It would not surprise me if nations have already made attempts to knock out U.S. power grids using electromagnetic pulse EMP weapons. For the nuanced fan at home, there's a lot of different ways that people can get at us. But before we get off that track, let's talk about one of the things that I know is near and dear to the financial world, which is what's going on in Greece.
Yes, yes. In fact, the things that have been going on in Greece, you know, Don and I did a blog a couple days ago, and I called it Loan Modification number 64. And I know you actually pointed out it's actually number 3, Gino. It's not that bad, but, you know, it's kind of nice when countries can just go out and get loan modifications.
This one, I will tell you, is not a real good one. My particular opinion, I'm guessing you agree with me, is number 3 will pretty quickly turn into number 4. I pulled some of the details doing some research, you know, before I came into the office here today, and looking at just from a perspective of living in Greece. One of the things that struck me was Greece's creditors asked for a massive increase in the VAT, or value-added tax, which basically means anything involving a tourism, a taxi, a restaurant, a hotel, anything that's actually going to give Greece any chance of getting out of the hole they're in. That tax on the people of Greece went from 13%, which is already a little bit annoying, to 23%, which is loan sharking.
Yeah, well, I'd like you to join us, and I'd like you to join us at donandgino.com and check us out streaming while we're at KHTS 11:20 a.m. And Rob, that's a really good point. And I want to talk about that because taxation is probably the number one thing that affects finances for a country. And the thing about the value-added tax is tourism's the only thing they have going for them right now, right? Because their money is right now is a good opportunity to travel there because it's cheap. That's a reality. It's cheap to travel to Greece right now. The dollar goes a long way. The euro's a little weaker than it has been over the last decade or two. Dollar's strong, so it's a good idea to go there. Well, now you add this value-added tax. That makes you think twice, doesn't it?
Well, the value-added tax, and frankly, the entire destabilization of Greece makes me wonder, is it worth paying a visit as an American, even though the dollar is strong, even though you get more bang for your buck? I got news for you, listeners. There's a lot of other countries where the dollar is strong. Much of Europe is still reliant on the euro last time I checked. And guess what? The dollar and the euro were pretty darn close to one another for the first time in almost a decade. So for Americans who have a little bit of extra wealth, who are looking to see the world, guess what? Now's the time.
Yeah, well, Greece is still a beautiful place, though. There's nothing wrong with checking out Greece. Good food.
Hey, a euro is a euro, you know?
So that's one of the interesting things. But as you look at taxation, right, let's talk about taxation for a minute. You look at taxation, and usually, and I'll say usually because not always, but usually taxation stops exchange. And what people don't talk about usually, they say, well, 23%, that's going to definitely yield them more money than 13%. But if there's no motion, if there's no exchange of money, it doesn't matter if you make it 70%. If there's no exchange of money, the taxable rate has no impact.
There was an interview I saw which talked to a number of members of the Greece community who are in this travel universe. And they said, look, we used to, you know, we ran a restaurant, for instance, and we would have hotels that we would cater to, and we would have businesses that would pay us visits, or we would cater to their lunches. At 23%, no one is doing it anymore. So the business that was there is now completely dried up.
Well, we're not dried up yet. We've got 3 more segments to go. I've got Rob Schwartz joining me today, helping stand in for Don, sit in, actually, here in the Vault Media studio. So stick around as we talk not only about Greece, but we're going to talk a little bit more about the financial markets and I think some great opportunities in real estate, great opportunities in maybe gold. So stick around on the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show on your hometown station AM 1220, KHTS.